me ask you something. When was the last time you felt genuinely rested? Not vacation rested, where you spend the first 3 days recovering from the work it took to leave. Actually rested. If you had to think about it for more than 2 seconds, this episode is for you. Here is what organizations keep getting wrong. They treat burnout like it is an individual problem, like if you just meditated more, drank more water, or downloaded the right wellness app, everything would magically balance out. Meanwhile, the system that created the exhaustion stays perfectly intact. Nobody questions the structure, they just question your stamina. And if you are a GenX leader, you are holding an especially complicated bag right now. You are managing teams, translating between generations, adopting new technology, navigating organizational change, and somehow expected to do all of it without breaking a sweat. Spoiler, that is not sustainable. And it is not a character flaw. Today, we are unpacking why burnout is a culture problem, not a personal failure, and what leaders and organizations can actually do about it, including how AI can be part of the solution, not just another thing on your to-do list. Welcome to Unlock, Empower, Transform. I am Shay Blackmon, HR strategist, culture transformation consultant, 3-time published author, and DBA candidate in organizational leadership. I have spent over 24 years helping organizations build cultures where people actually want to show up, not out of obligation, but out of purpose. This is episode 58, and today we are tackling one of the most misunderstood issues in the modern workplace, burnout. Specifically, why the traditional response of putting the burden on the individual is lazy leadership. And yes, I said what I said. If you are a professional woman navigating leadership, whether you are mid-career, senior level, or somewhere in between, this conversation is designed for you. We are going to talk about what is really driving the exhaustion epidemic among GenX leaders, the systemic solutions organizations should be implementing, how AI can actually help redistribute workload instead of adding to it, and I have a quick exercise for you today that ties directly to the Shield Resilient Strategy Guide. Let us get into it. So let us name what is happening. GenX leaders are experiencing burnout at rates that should alarm every organization paying attention, and most of them are not paying attention. Think about the unique position GenX is in. This is the generation that entered the workforce when loyalty was still rewarded, climbed the ladder doing the actual work, and now sits in the middle of the most significant workplace transformation in a century. You are managing millennial and Gen Z employees who have very different expectations about work. You are reporting to boomers or early Gen X executives who still operate from a put your head down and grind mindset. You are adopting AI, automation, and digital tools that nobody formally trained you on. And you are carrying the emotional labor of being the bridge between all of it. That is a lot. And here is where it gets personal. In my career across automotive manufacturing, healthcare, and professional services, I have seen this pattern over and over. The most reliable leaders, the ones who always figure it out, are the ones organizations load up the most because they perform. And performance gets rewarded with more work, not more support. There was a manufacturing company where mid-level leaders were turning over at nearly double the rate of frontline employees. When the organization finally dug into the data, the issue was not compensation. It was not benefits. It was unsustainable workload combined with zero investment in leadership development or support systems. Those leaders were not weak. The culture was extractive. In my book, High Value Leadership, Transforming Organizations Through Purposeful Culture, I talk about the concept of stewardship of culture, which is the second pillar of the High Value Leadership trademark framework. Stewardship means organizations have a responsibility to actively shape environments where people can sustain high performance, not just demand it. When that stewardship is absent, burnout is the predictable result. So no, burnout is not because you cannot handle it. Burnout is the system telling you it was never designed to support you in the first place. Now let us talk solutions, because naming the problem is important, but solutions pay the bills. If burnout is a culture problem, then the fix has to be cultural. Individual coping strategies matter, absolutely, but they are not the whole answer. You cannot yoga your way out of a toxic organizational design. Trust me, I have watched people try. Here are 3 systemic shifts organizations need to make. First, audit the workload distribution. Most organizations have no idea how unevenly work is distributed. They just know certain people always deliver, so those people get more. A real workload audit looks at task allocation, meeting load, cross-functional responsibilities, and emotional labor. That last one is critical. Emotional labor is invisible, and it disproportionately falls on women and people of color in leadership. The person who mediates every conflict, the person who onboards every new hire informally, the person everyone comes to because leadership will not address the real issue. That labor is real, it is exhausting, and it is rarely acknowledged, let alone measured. Second, redesign performance expectations around sustainability. If your performance metrics only measure output without factoring in the cost to produce that output, you are incentivizing burnout. High-value leadership organizations measure both results and the sustainability of those results. There is a difference between a team that hits targets because they are thriving and a team that hits targets because they are terrified. One is a strategy, the other is a ticking clock. Third, invest in leadership support infrastructure. This means real development, not a webinar and a pat on the back. This means coaching, peer cohorts, manageable spans of control, and leaders who are actually trained to manage people, not just processes. In the high-value leadership framework, we call this balanced responsibility. High standards paired with high support. You cannot have one without the other and expect people to last. There was a professional services firm that implemented what they called a sustainability review alongside their annual performance review. They asked leaders to rate not just what they accomplished, but how sustainable the path to accomplishment felt. Within 18 months, voluntary turnover among mid-level leaders dropped significantly because the organization was finally measuring what mattered. They were not just counting output, they were counting cost. Now let us talk about AI, because this is where it gets exciting and a little controversial. Most conversations about AI in the workplace center on efficiency or job elimination. But there is a third conversation we are not having enough, and it might be the most important one. AI as a tool for workload redistribution and burnout prevention. Think about the tasks that eat your day alive: scheduling, report generation, data compilation, meeting summaries, first drafts of communications, sorting through applicant pools. These are tasks that consume enormous amounts of time and mental energy, but they are not where your highest value as a leader lives. Your highest value is in strategic thinking, relationship building, coaching your team, and making decisions that require judgment and experience. That is irreplaceable. The report formatting? Not so much. AI can absorb the administrative weight so that leaders can focus on the human work that actually prevents burnout in others. When a manager has time to have a real conversation with a struggling team member, instead of rushing through it because they are behind on 3 reports, that is culture transformation in action. And here is where it connects to what I teach in the high-value leadership trademark framework. Purpose-driven vision, the first pillar, is about connecting people to meaningful work. AI does not give people purpose, but it can remove the meaningless noise that blocks people from accessing purpose-driven work. It can give leaders their time back so they can lead instead of just manage tasks. There was an organization that implemented AI-powered scheduling and task prioritization tools for their leadership team. Within 90 days, leaders reported gaining back an average of 7 hours per week. 7 hours. That is almost a full workday reinvested into strategic thinking, team development, and honestly, rest. The result was not just happier leaders. It was better decisions, stronger team engagement, and lower turnover across the board. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Shay, AI feels like one more thing I have to learn. I hear you. And that is exactly why the approach matters. AI adoption should reduce your cognitive load, not add to it. Start small. Identify the 2 or 3 tasks that drain the most energy for the least strategic value, and explore AI tools that can handle those first. You do not need to become a tech expert. You need to become a strategic delegator, and AI is your newest team member. This is what I explore in depth in the upcoming High Value Leadership Intensive course. We go beyond theory and into practical application of these frameworks so you can implement them immediately. All right, exercise time. This is quick, practical, and it connects directly to the self-awareness component of the Shield Resilience Strategy Guide, which is your free download for this episode. I call this the Burnout Source Audit. Grab a piece of paper or open your notes app. I need 5 minutes of your honesty. Step 1. List the top 5 tasks or responsibilities that drain you the most in a given week. Not the hard ones, the draining ones. There is a difference. Hard work you chose and find meaningful is energizing. Draining work feels like it is pulling from a well that is already empty. Step 2. Next to each one, write S for systemic or P for personal. Systemic means the drain is caused by how the organization operates. Unclear processes, understaffing, redundant meetings, broken technology, poor delegation from above. Personal means it is something within your control to change, a boundary you have not set, a skill gap, or a mindset shift you need to make. Step 3. For every item marked S, write 1 sentence about what would need to change at the organizational level to address it. For every item marked P, write 1 action you can take this week. Here is what most people discover when they do this exercise. The majority of their burnout sources are systemic, not personal. And that realization alone is powerful because it shifts the narrative from what is wrong with me to what is wrong with this system and what can I do about it? The Shield Guide walks you through building on this self-awareness with healthy coping strategies, internal resource development, external support systems, learning orientation techniques, and daily practices that build cumulative resilience. This exercise is your starting point. Let me leave you with this. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It is not proof that you work hard. It is evidence that something in the system is broken. And the fix is not more resilience from individuals. The fix is better cultures built by intentional leaders who understand that sustainability and performance are not competing priorities. They are the same priority. If this resonated with you, here is what I need you to do. First, download the Shield Resilience Strategy Guide. The link is in the show notes below. It is completely free and it gives you a full framework for building the kind of strategic resilience that protects your energy while you do the work of transforming your organization. Second, grab a copy of my book, High Value Leadership: Transforming Organizations Through Purposeful Culture. Everything we talked about today, the 5 pillars, the systemic approach, the connection between culture and performance, it is all in there with the full framework and practical application. Link is in the show notes. Third, if you are ready to go deeper, join the waitlist for the High Value Leadership Intensive course. This is where we move from understanding the concepts to implementing them in your specific context. The waitlist link is in the show notes. And fourth, drop a comment below. Tell me your biggest burnout source and whether it is systemic or personal. I read every single comment and I will be responding. On Thursday, we are back with episode 59. The performance review is dead. Long live continuous development. If you have ever sat through a performance review that felt like a formality, that episode is going to validate every frustration you have ever had and give you something better. Thank you for being here. Thank you for leading with purpose. I am Shay Blackmon, and until next time, keep unlocking your potential empowering those around you, and transforming the cultures that need you. Take care of yourselves out there.